Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am creating this adorable card featuring the brand new Essentials by Ellen Leading Lady. This is the Grand Lady. And I thought I would show you how I created these metallic knitting needles out of toothpicks. Yes, toothpicks. And this is a great way to create some faux metallic accents. So I thought I'd walk you through it quickly. Once you have the images stamped and colored and die cut, this is actually a card that comes together rather quickly. So I'm starting out with an A2 size card front. It may be cut down a little. Maybe it's 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And I'm using the Catherine Pooler Juniper Mist ink to stamp these stripes. This is from the pattern play stamp set from the Essentials by Ellen line. And I'm just kind of stamping them kind of like wonky off to the side here. And then I'm going to clean my stamp really well because I'm going to create kind of a crosshatch pattern with this stamp. And I'm going to use the Distress Oxide ink in Tattered Rose. And I'm going to bring in, I love the way that this navy and this kind of blushy pink look together. But in order to create that crosshatch pattern, I'm going to make sure that these lines are going in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to kind of overlap them over the navy ink that's already there. And I'm creating kind of this fun and funky kind of plaid-like pattern. I used this a couple of times when creating the samples for the Essentials by Ellen March 2019 release. And I really love how these patterns look when you kind of overlap them over each other. It's just, it really is a cool effect. And it reminds me so much of pattern paper. And this is a great way to kind of customize your own pattern paper, get the colors that you need for the project that you're working on. So I have my little leading lady here. She's already stamped and colored and die cut. And I'm going to add a little floral cluster to her dress. This is also from the Pattern Play stamp set. And I just stamped it on some white cardstock and fussy cut it. I added a little bit of color with some Copic markers. And I'm just going to add a little floral accent to her dress there. I just think it's a fun way to dress up this little lady here. And then I kind of went through several options of what she should hold. And I was like, pie tin, no. I decided I really wanted to make a little knitting lady. And I have to say that there's some really fun coordinating sentiments in this Leading Lady Grand Lady stamp set from the Essentials by Ellen line. So I was excited to use the one that says you keep this family knit together. So I'm going to add a layer of foam adhesive to the back of my lady here, and I'm going to adhere her onto the right side of this card base. You'll see that I flipped the card front around so the pattern's coming in from the other side. And then I'm going to arrange some of these yarn skeins, and I'm adding those on with some foam adhesive as well. Sometimes when you're working with these smaller images, you want to make sure that you do not press them down too firmly to begin with, because I find myself wanting to move them quite often. So I kind of have made it a habit not to really push things down until I know that I'm satisfied with their positioning. So I'm kind of playing with these a little bit, and like I said, I moved them around just a bit. And now I'm going to take this over to my mini Misty, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment kind of in this upper left-hand area. I'm going to be heat embossing it with some gold embossing powder, so I prepped the surface with my powder tool, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment using some Versamark ink. And then I'm going to add some Brutus Monroe Gilded embossing powder, and I'll tap off the excess, and then I can heat set that with my heat tool. Now, I decided that toothpicks would make the perfect knitting needles, and I almost added these in just plain, but I thought these would be so much fun in gold. And I tried a couple of things. I tried like a paint pen to kind of color over these, and it wasn't giving me the effect I wanted. So what I'm doing is I am taking these toothpicks and I'm rolling them across my Versamark ink pad. Then I'm going to take them over to my embossing powder jar, and I'm just going to dunk them into the embossing powder. This is the same Brutus Monroe Gilded embossing powder. And I'm going to make sure that I screw the lid on this because otherwise I'm going to spill it all over. And then I'm going to heat set this with my heat tool. Now, I did find that this wants to heat up really quick and bubble up. So keep your heat tool moving and just kind of turn them in your hands as you're heat setting it. And you'll be left with a really cool pair of metallic gold knitting needles. Now I decided that these needed another layer of the gold embossing powder, so I just let them cool, and then I repeated that process again. I took them over to my Versamark ink pad, and I'm just rolling them around on the ink pad, kind of just holding them between my finger and my thumb and just rolling them. Then I'm going to take them over to the embossing powder once again, give them a really good coating of that gilded embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat set them. Now this is something that you could do on top of wood veneer pieces. You can do it on top of paper, add several layers of metallic embossing powder to create some faux metallic effects. And I think it's a fun way to dress up simple things like this and really make the card feel special. Now they were a little long for knitting needles, I'm not going to lie. So I'm taking my Tim Holtz scissors and I'm just cutting them down. And I did find that it's a better idea to hold both ends of the toothpicks so they don't go shooting across your craft room. And then I'm going to take these knitting needles and I'm going to slide them into my leading lady's hand here. And I love how the dies for these leading ladies and gentlemen cut out the hand portion so that you can put things into their hands. Now, before I adhere the knitting needles, I went ahead and put my card front onto an A2 size top folding card base. And then I'm going to adhere the knitting needles because I'm smart like that today. Most of the time, I would not have thought of that ahead of time. And I would have been like fumbling around with these knitting needles, waiting for them to dry as I'm still trying to adhere the card front to the card base. So sometimes I do things the right way and sometimes I do not. But that's part of the process. So I stuck them into her hands, and what I did was I used a little Lawn Fawn glue tube to kind of hold them in place. And now I'm using some embroidery thread or embroidery floss, and I'm kind of wrapping it around these knitting needles, and I'm going to adhere it onto my card front with some loops and stuff in it to kind of just add another fun detail to this card. And I am really finding that I am loving the Lawn Fawn glue tube. I think it's a great liquid adhesive and it's perfect for applications like this. And I love that it dries rather quickly as well, and it seems to dry pretty clear also. So I'm just going to finish off my little yarn loop here, which, like I said, I think it's such a fun accent to this knit together theme that we have going on the card. And that finishes off my card today, featuring those really fun faux metallic knitting needles that we created using some toothpicks. I mean, who would have thought, right? As always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube, so be sure to check there if you're looking for something in particular. But head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Over there, I'll have more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies, including the Copic colors that I used to color this image today. As always, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you stopped by. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope you're inspired to create your own faux metallic accents on your next card. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and turn on the notifications so you won't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials here. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. You know, if you've made it this far, you are one of my favorites. If you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, go ahead and click that button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.